almost like an understood thing that they would try and cheat you out of your money. It's just a big scam. Music's kind of like a big street hustle. It's just done in a big office building.
Welcome to another episode of Richer Lives, aka the show that teaches you how to use money to live your best life. I'm Vivian Tu, and today I'm sitting down with boy band icon, entrepreneur, and host of some of your favorite reality dating shows, Nick Lachey. Welcome to the show, Nick.
Thank you so much. Good to be here.
I'm so excited to chat and get into your career, your life. But before we get started, let's bring it down to baby Nick. Growing up in your family, what was your financial situation? Did you guys talk about money? What was that like?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up pretty modestly. I'd say we were a middle-class family. We didn't have big, extravagant vacations. Eating out was definitely a special, occasion. I grew up, I guess, understanding the value of money, which is something I really am thankful for. I appreciated what it took to make money and how important it was to be smart with your money because we didn't have a lot of it. So I learned, early on that if you're lucky enough to make it, take care of it. Don't be irresponsible with it. I came from the clean your plate, generation, which is like, we don't waste food. We don't waste anything. I go too far with it now, to the point where I don't even order meals anymore. I just eat my kids' leftovers.
Leftover tapas. You're just having a little bit of everything.
Yeah, a little bit of everything. I come and just sweep it up.
And you studied sports medicine at Miami University of Ohio before you ended up ultimately pivoting away into the entertainment world. Was that ever stressful for your parents, knowing that sports medicine is a little bit more of a stable, quote unquote, career versus trying to pursue artistry?
So I went to performing arts high school. So I grew up in like an arts world. We were like fame. We sang, we acted, we danced in the halls. And it was like the cool thing to do. So when I came out of there, I actually went to USC as a theater major. So, I did kind of dive into that artistic world and then quickly realized having a theater degree was not going to guarantee me anything. I'm going to have this incredibly expensive education at USC and have a diploma that means nothing. Let me change my major up and give myself a better chance. But leaving Miami as a sports med major, as you said, I think my parents, because I was always in the arts and I went to an arts high school, it didn't shock them to hear that I wanted to move back to LA and start this band. I think they kind of took the approach of, hey, you know what? You can always come back to school. This is maybe a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity you need to take advantage of. So they were very supportive. But I think, I think everyone kind of was skeptical at first, worried about how are you going to support yourself? But if it doesn't work out, I think they knew that school would always be there and it could always be something I did again.
Fortunately, that gamble did pay off. You ended up becoming a member of 98 Degrees of boy band fame.
Well, thank you.
Truly one of the greats. We all had the posters in our bedrooms. What was the expenses associated with being a member of a boy band?
And we would sing for anyone in LA. We'd sing for Taco Bell. We'd sing for Fat Burger. Like we would sing at the Universal City Walk with a hat. We'd sing anywhere. That was kind of our way of trying to get discovered. And so when you finally do get signed, we walk into Motown Records and you sing a cappella and we want to offer you a deal. We feel like we've made it.
Greatest day of your life.
Well, it was definitely one of them. But you then quickly realize that you're at the basement level. Like you think you've made it to the penthouse and you're just starting out. And then it became even more obvious to us that every dollar you spend, if it's in a recording studio, if you're ordering catering in, anything, car service, whatever you spend is a recoupable expense that is then taken out of whatever money you make down the line. So there's this idea that it's all glitz and glamour and fame and fortune. And I think a lot of that, especially in the era of music videos, was really exaggerated. For a lot of us, we didn't see any money from those record deals. It took a lot of sales to ever realize
those royalties.
The royalties. And now these days in music, there are no streaming has killed all of that. So it's not even it's kind of a moot point. But yeah, even in those days when people were selling millions and millions of albums, the record label would often tell you, well, you're not recouped yet. You're not recouped yet. The big secret in music is you have to audit your record label. It was almost like an understood thing that they would try and cheat you out of your money. It's just a big scam. Music's kind of like a big street hustle. It's just done in a big office building. They would try and take whatever they could, and then you have to go hire a lawyer and go in and audit the company.
And you got to pay them too.
You got to pay them. So I think the idea of being a musician is a lot sexier sometimes than actually being the musician. A lot of these people that you think are making a ton of money, including us, just weren't, because that's not the way the business is set up.
Fortunately for you, you did have other people in 98 Degrees with you. You get to stick together as a crew, look out for each other, be friends. Did you guys negotiate one-on-one with the record label, or was it as a group?
Everything we did was as a group. And we made that decision. That's kind of like group dynamic conversation, but when you start having one member that's like, I think I deserve 50%, and you other three split the other 50, you get into some really creepy group dynamics, you know what I mean? So in the interest of group harmony and being fair, we always split everything 4 ways.
Was it always, thinking in harmony, or were there ever times where you guys disagreed? One person wanted to take a deal, you didn't want to? Like, was there ever any disagreement?
Yeah, look, there are always disagreements. That's part of being in a group. It's hard to find 4 people who agree on everything all the time. So hard part about being in a 4-member group is there's no breaking vote, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you'd have to rely on your manager to be the 5th and deciding vote on things a lot of the time. But yeah, we had a situation where we once had a record deal offered to us, and 3 of the 4 of us wanted to take it. And we had one guy who was like, I'm not doing it, not signing my name there. And thank God he did, because it was a terrible deal and we probably would have been in even worse shape. When it comes time to make decisions about group direction or what have you, then it's, 3 beats 1 and you move on and majority wins. But yeah, when it comes to contracts, everyone's got to sign on the dotted line and move on together. Otherwise, no deal.
What do you credit to being your guidance during that period? Was it hiring the right manager? Or was it, getting a good lawyer? Like, who helped you guys make the right choices?
As it turns out, in hindsight, we probably needed someone to advise us against our manager, because he wasn't exactly on the up and up either, our first manager. So there's a lot of ways to be taken advantage of. And thankfully, we had each other. When you're in a band, you're kind of a brotherhood, and you lean on each other. We had a couple people at the label who would take us to the side and be like, hey guys, you really need to look at this. And just decent people who knew we were being taken advantage of and were willing to kind of stick their neck out and bring it to our attention. If you went back and audited those record label books from the late 90s, I promise you there's still money, on the table that we never saw. It's just unfortunately, the way that business worked back in those days.
Everyone was relatively young when some real opportunities and real money started rolling in. Were there any growing pains or financial missteps that you guys took?
All in all, for a band that was successful, we were so frugal with money. Like, there was a couple years there where none of us even had an apartment. Like, we were on the road consistently for 2 years. If we had a week off, I'd just go stay with my dad. Do
you guys have an ultimate cheapskate story?
Yeah. Even in New York, we lived in New York making our first record. And so you'd be in the recording studio till, 3, 4 in the morning. There's 4 guys. We lived in Brooklyn at the time. Split a cab. No. We weren't going to split a cab fare to Brooklyn. We went and stood in the subway where they run at 4 in the morning, 2 trains an hour. So you'd stand there in the freezing cold for, 25 minutes to save $5? It was a joke. I look back on it now, I'm like, what in the world were we thinking? We were so worried about coming out of it with nothing. We were so paranoid about making the wrong decision that we just took the cheapest possible way out.
Where do you think that paranoia came from? Just humble beginnings, or?
4 kids from Ohio who didn't grow up with a lot. It was like, okay, well, we're going to be as cautious as we can with this and really be super conservative with our spending. But looking back on now, it's there's got to be a middle ground there. We don't have to stand in the subway station freezing, waiting for the A train. You know what I mean? We could have been a little bit bigger spenders. But I like to think of it as responsible. Other people would call it cheap. But we've been very, very smart about our money. You are very responsible with money, it sounds. But let's talk about a splurge. Was there any one splurge that sticks out in your mind during the height of the 98 Degrees fame? Well, the big splurge I had was I bought my first car, my first new car, right? Ford Expedition. But even that I bought in Connecticut because the dealer there knew us and was going to give me a slightly better deal than the dealer in Ohio. So I bought it in Connecticut, drove it overnight home to Ohio, and then flew right back to Connecticut for a show the next day. So even in my splurge moment, I was still a cheap idiot and literally drove all night in a car. I probably saved myself, I don't know, $5,000 or something. Yeah. Was your time worth that? Yeah, exactly. Was that even worth it? Someone said that to me recently, when you die and you're laying on your deathbed, you won't wish you had more money. You'll wish you had more time. Time's your most valuable commodity, your most valuable asset. And you can't buy more of it. You can't buy more of it. Sometimes it's worth the extra money to save yourself a little bit of that time. But I was young and stupid then. So you had all the time in the world. Much wiser now.
So we talked about 98 Degrees in its heyday, but now 98 Degrees is back and better than ever. Your album just dropped on May 9th, and you guys are actually re-recording your masters. For the non-music industry folks out there, what exactly does that mean?
I'll do a little shameless plug.
Yeah, do it.
On May 9th, the album Full Circle came out. It was 5 new songs and then 5 re-records of the masters. And so we talked earlier about the record label and how, them owning your masters, owning your product, owning your creativity. That's something that Taylor Swift really brought to the forefront of everyone's mind when she re-recorded all of her masters. So she had ownership of them. And we thought, well, this is an opportunity for us to kind of do the same. Not to say we're on the same level as Taylor Swift, but if you can re-record and kind of take ownership of the songs that made you what you are, the songs that people have come to know and love, it just feels like you have more ownership and control over your own career. So our 5 biggest songs, all re-recorded.
4 Boys from Ohio edition.
4 Boys from Ohio edition, exactly.
And since you are jumping back into the studio, re-recording, how do you feel like this experience has changed dramatically since your initial musical experience of having music videos and CDs, and now we're in a streaming era where everybody just listens on their phone? The
music business has changed, permanently and in a big time way. I mean, we first came up, it wouldn't be unheard of to spend $1 million on a music video. I mean, that's how important music videos were. I think we spent over $1 million on the Una Noche video because MTV was a juggernaut. TRL was a juggernaut. It was such a platform to launch your music that the label, didn't even blink at spending that kind of money on a video. Now people are recording a video on their iPhone and putting it up, and that's, call it a day. It's not even the same thing. So the bottom line has changed so dramatically. The willingness to spend big money, it's just not there anymore. If you walked into your kitchen one day and turned on the spigot and the sink and Coke came out, you would never go to the store and buy Coke again. That's what happened to music. Like, why would I go and buy a CD when I can just get it for free online? So when that happens, everything shifts. And you saw the record labels then start to panic. Well, how are we going to make our money? Well, we're going to take a piece of your merchandise. We're going to take a piece of your touring. And so they started to create what's called 360 deals where they own everything that you do. Well, then if you're an artist, how do you make your money? You know what I mean? Well, I got to start to do marketing. I got to brand myself in this way. And so everyone had to start thinking outside the box because the bottom line changed so dramatically, it shifted the entire business.
On that note, let's take a quick break for a SoFi money lesson, and we'll be right back with more from Nick. As your financial matchmaker, here are my top 5 financial green flags you should look for in a bank. Number 1, no banking account fees. If your financial institution is charging you to be with them, it's time to move on. Number 2, free financial insights and credit score monitoring so you have full transparency with all of your finances. We don't keep secrets in relationships or with our money. Number 3, access to an award-winning checking and savings account because you deserve better than just basic, right? Right. Number 4, a highly competitive APY so you can make money on your money. And number 5, doing all of this all in one app. Sound like a perfect match for you? If you said yes, then head to SoFi.com/richerlives and move your money to a bank that actually respects you. Your wife, Vanessa, is a TRL legend, and you yourself were kind of a pioneer of OG reality television and have really transitioned now into being the host of some of the biggest reality TV shows. How has that shaped your feelings around that business, but also your career personally? I
mean, look, reality TV has been an absolute, huge thing in my life and in my career. MTV in general. I mean, look what it's done for my career as a musician. It certainly gave my band 90 Degrees a huge platform in the kind of heyday of TRL. Must-watch TV for kids, all across the country.
I'd run off the bus to come home to catch all of the music videos.
We'd be on the tour bus and we'd be doing the same thing. Where do we come in today? The biggest actors, the biggest musicians come to promote because it reached an audience you could not get to any other way. Now, certainly with the internet, kind of left TRL as a meaningless thing. But back in those days, it was massive. And then parlaying that, Newlyweds obviously became a huge reality show. I think the only one that had come out before that was The Osbournes, which was also a massive show. But that show was created as a vehicle to promote music. You know, my ex-wife had an album coming out. I had an album coming out. I would do a little 6, episode thing about our albums coming out and promote the music. We had no idea it was going to take on this other life of, of being this reality fly on the wall type of show. So that was totally unexpected.
Was that weird? Because it was one of the first true like reality TV shows. Like, was it weird just like having people watch you exist?
You get very used to it, surprisingly. And I remember at first they were like, well, you have to, you don't talk to the crew. They're fly on the wall. And I said, guys, if this is ever going to work, that's just not how I'm wired. You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to be in my house and, basically watch my every move and we're not going to talk to each other.
Yeah.
It's just, we got to get past that right now. And so I actually came to really love the crew. I mean, I remember crying the day we shut down because you develop relationships with them.
They're family.
They really became family. And then on the flip side, when people started to watch it, the beautiful thing about reality TV is when you're in a boy band, people just know you as Nick from 98 Degrees, right? And it's specifically a pretty heavily female audience. What reality TV did for me was allow me to introduce myself as Nick Lachey, the person, to the world. And even guys are like, oh man, he's kind of cool. I can have a beer with that guy. It opened up a different world for me as an entertainer because no one ever got to see that side of me before. It was just Nick in this boy band. So it allowed me to, I think, become very comfortable being myself, which has served me well as a host. I can't act to save my life, you know what I mean? Because I'm not good at being somebody else, but I feel very comfortable being myself, which is what reality is all about.
Looking back, do you feel like you were compensated fairly for some of those early reality TV shows?
Yeah, look, in the end, renegotiation's a beautiful thing, In success, you're able to make some things right. I have no complaints. I think that though the first season you do anything, it's like, okay, well, we'll see how this works out. And then things become successful and you'll say, hey, guys, you want to keep doing this? We gotta make this a little fair. And then, if you have reasonable people involved, you usually can come to some kind of agreement. So
fast forward 2 decades of amazing reality TV, and 2020, Love is Blind premieres, and the show is a huge hit. Season after season after season. You and Vanessa, did you guys negotiate contracts individually or as a team?
So the great part about this story is that Vanessa and I were attached to another show, and we actually went into Netflix to pitch this other show called For Love or Money. And Netflix said, you know what? We're not crazy about this show. We got to be honest with you. But we just picked up this other show, and we think you guys would be incredible hosts for this show. Can you come back in tomorrow and we'll talk to you about it? So we said, all right. So they pitched us Love is Blind. To keep things fair and, and even across the board, we definitely worked, our two teams, our managers, our agents worked together to negotiate the same, same terms. Everything I've done as a team player, it's always been the same. Yeah. It's always been the same deal across the board. I think you just get into way too much trouble or potential trouble if you start trying to negotiate against each other. It's just not a good look, and certainly not good for people who are meaningful to you on the personal level. So I never do that. So yeah, Vanessa and I negotiated together and had no idea that Love is Blind would become what it's become. It resonated with people in a way that's allowed it to now be, 8 seasons in. So
in your relationship, who is the better negotiator, you or Vanessa?
We still talking about money or talking about other
anything,
things?
life.
Okay. She's a pretty good negotiator. I'll give the nod smartly to my wife.
Yeah, that was a safe play. That was a good move.
That was a test, right?
Yeah.
Did I pass?
Yeah. When Love is Blind does become this massive hit, did you have the opportunity to go back to the table and renegotiate for more money, for more creative control, for any of those things?
We were able to renegotiate for a different deal, but we also recognize the incredible opportunity we have with that show to, to be a part of something special. It's not about trying to gouge the people you're working with. It's about finding people who are reasonable and can see things, fairly. We're able to continue this great harmonious relationship. And in success, we all win, If you start to get greedy and you start to step out of your lane a little bit, that's when things go sideways, you know what I mean? When you're on to something that's special and meaningful and good, keep it going, It's not about trying to take advantage of people or trying to get over on people. It's about maintaining that chemistry that got you to where you are.
Do you have any golden rules that you keep with Vanessa, since you guys are both together at home, but also at work?
I think the best thing you can do is not bring your work home with you, which is tricky when you work with your spouse, And I think we do a really good job of doing that for the most part. But it's not easy working with your spouse sometimes. You know, sometimes you show up for work and there's an argument at home that you brought with you to work and you don't want that to bleed over. And sometimes there's arguments at work that bleed over. You don't want that to. So, I think it's kind of good to compartmentalize and recognize that, you're here doing a job. Yes, you're a married couple and we've been together almost 20 years now. So I think that's our golden rule is don't bring work home. Don't bring home to work. Try and keep it as separate as you can.
It's not me versus you. It's us versus the world.
Yeah. I mean, we're a team.
On the show, what would you say has been the biggest financial red flag you've seen?
Gosh, I think it was season 5 where someone was not fully upfront about their financial situation. Certainly a red flag for her. Look, I think it bleeds into anything in your relationship. If there's not trust, then that's a red flag. Finances I think it's the number one reason people get divorced often is money, right? It's a huge issue. And you have to find someone who believes fiscally in some of the same things you do. Otherwise, I think you're going to be constantly butting heads, and that's just a recipe for disaster.
What percentage of couples do you think talk about money in the pods?
I think most do, and we encourage them to. I mean, I think that it's important. Again, it's not... Love is love, right? I mean, you can fall in love with someone and it's not for their money, but eventually money is going to come into play. That's real life. And that's the beauty of Love is Blind, right? You fall in love in the pods and you have this emotional connection and it's like this utopian, world and then you are forced to confront reality. And that's really what it's all about is can that emotional connection you made with each other, sight unseen in the pods, can it get you through all the pressures and challenges of the world? That's the real beauty of the show is it enough? Will it be enough? And for some it is, and for others it's proven not to be.
So love may or may not be bank account blind.
Eyes wide open on the bank account.
Right, you gotta be seeing that.
Yeah.
Nick, your POV, do you think differing views on money is a valid reason to break up?
I don't know that a differing view on money is necessarily the reason to break up, but it's certainly would be a red flag for what happens down the line. If it makes any sense. Like my wife and I spend very differently. You know what I mean? Like I think most couples, like you have someone who tends to spend. That. Well, I mean, I think she enjoys spending money more than I'm still to this day. It goes back to the 90-degree days. I mean, I'm still wearing clothes I had 15 years ago. You know what I mean? We're just wired a little differently that way. There's no right or wrong to it. But I do think that if people allow those things to grow, if there's a resentment for it, or then that can be problematic. So it's not a reason to break up, but it certainly would be potentially an issue that could continue to compound, and at some point become problematic. Resentment interest compounds
over time,
very quickly over time. Yep. Recently, we've had a lot of conversations between couples about prenups.
Financial green flag.
I mean, look, you have earthquake insurance, you have fire insurance, you pray you never need it, but you got it in case and I think that's what a prenup is to me. It's like, well, of course we hope we never have to ever pull this document out again, but God forbid we have the relationship earthquake. We want to know that there's things already agreed upon.
Do you and Vanessa have a prenup?
We do not have a prenup.
Wow.
California is a unique state in that regard, in that
community property.
So whatever you come into the relationship with as an individual, those assets are protected as an individual. And then whatever money you make together as a couple is community property. And to me, that's incredibly fair. Whether or not both parties are working together, like Vanessa and I get to work together, or one is supporting the other, raising the kids as the other is, going to work 9 to 5. But whatever that scenario is, once you're in a relationship together, I do believe that it's hard to quantify who's giving what, taking what. I think the fair thing to do is that's community property. It's 50-50.
Do you remember the first time you and Vanessa shared that bank account balance with each other, got financially naked? What was that like?
Financially naked. I like that. Financially naked, not nearly as fun as being
not even naked, a little bit.
By the way, when we started to get into, hey, we're going to take this thing to the next level, right? And you start to talk about really truly blending two lives and getting married. I think that's probably the first time where it was like, this is what I've got in terms of investments. And that's when it becomes real, right? To me, that's when it's time to be upfront and totally open about finances and everything else for that matter. But it's time for full transparency in life.
How do you and Vanessa approach investing as a couple? Real estate, collectibles? Was it stocks? Was it bonds?
I've stayed away from bonds for the most part. I'm not a huge fan of bonds. We were young enough to feel like we could be a little more aggressive. And again, we had that kind of nest egg and felt like we're going to take some shots, take some shots. I think real estate's kind of fun because it's tangible. You can see it. You can walk in it. You can smell it. You can, stocks is like this mysterious thing that hangs out there and you just watch the ticker and you're like, oh no, oh yeah. Real estate, you feel like you can at least touch it and it's there, So that's been a lot of fun to have some wins in that world.
Let's hit pause for a sec for another SoFi money tip.
Trying to find the right insurance is kind of like hitting up one of those fancy food halls. You think you know what you want, but there are so many options. Do you go for some gourmet pizza, tacos, maybe a poke bowl? That's where SoFi Protect comes in. Think of it like your personal insurance food hall, except here, they can help you put together a plate that could protect you. No overpaying for extras you don't need, and no missing out on the coverage you do. With SoFi, you get one place to shop, compare, and manage all your coverage from auto to home and even life. So you apply for exactly what you need at a price you love. Whether you need a light snack of coverage or a 3-course meal, SoFi makes it easy to help protect what matters most to you. Learn more at SoFi.com/protect.
Now that you've been in the reality TV world for 20 plus years, how do you feel like the industry and the financials behind it have changed since you were on in the early 2000s? All the way to now?
I feel like I've kind of lived this twice now. We saw the music business go through it, change forever because of file sharing and streaming now. And now you're seeing it happen to TV and film. Everything's just shrinking, and when the business shrinks, then the budgets shrink, then the salaries shrink, then everything has to adjust. And we're seeing that happen. So it was virtually unknown when we started in reality TV. And now it's become so much the norm, and people have found a way to make kind of cheaper TV that's still entertaining and still gets great ratings. And that's just business 101, right? If you can provide a product for less money and sell it for the same amount, it's just smart business. But yeah, you feel like an old curmudgeon, sitting on your couch talking about how it used to be back in my day. But,
the good old days.
And now we're seeing it too with California and the loss of production here. And, where can I make this for the cheapest amount of money? And I don't care if it's in, across the country or in another country.
Yeah.
It all comes down to budget, right? It all comes down to money in the end.
So I want to pivot really quick. Let's talk about your and Vanessa's most prized possessions, Camden, Brooklyn, and Phoenix. Your 3 kids.
It's got to be the kids.
What is one financial value that you'd like to impart on them?
I think the hardest part about being successful and having kids is making sure they understand the value of money. And I think it's a balance. It's a balance of knowing you're lucky, knowing you're in a position where you're not going to have to worry about money, but also appreciating the fact that not everyone is in that position. My son and I have started to volunteer at the food bank and doing things that are like, you need to broaden your perspective. You need to see that there's a bigger world out there. Not everyone is in the position you are, and you need to understand that and value what you have.
Knowing that you now are in a really fortunate position, you have a bunch of different income streams, you've got TV, you've got music, you've got partnerships, everything. How do you figure out what is worth your time, what is worth doing versus what's not?
That started to really come into focus for me lately because a lot of what I do for a living takes me away from my family, takes me away from my kids. And that time is the most precious thing to me. There's shows like Perfect Match that I am lucky enough to host that take me away for almost a month. And while it's an incredible opportunity, I love doing it, that means I have to give something else up, whether it's a tour or what, I can't be gone all the time. I won't be gone all the time. I don't want to be that dad that's gone all the time. I can't tell you how many red eyes I take because I want to see something my kids are doing, but I still have to get somewhere the next day. And those are the sacrifices you make because you don't want to miss out on anything. But is it a balance, right? It's like, what's important enough for me to be gone away from the things I cherish the most, which is my family. You never want money to come at the expense of that.
What piece of financial wisdom would 2025 Nick give to 1998 Nick?
Don't take the subway at 4 a.m. Yeah. maybe splurge on a cab, No, I think I don't have any regrets in that regard. I really don't. There's a part of me that's still that 18-year-old kid who's afraid he's never going to have a buck, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I was literally, when I got the call to come join 90 Degrees, I was either going to start a landscaping business in Ohio. I was cutting grass at the time. Or I was going to go join this crazy band in LA. Well, I chose the band and it's worked out, it's worked out well, but I could easily have been the guy who started a landscaping business. And I think I would have been fine with that.
Lachey Landscaping.
I've never tried to lose that innocence of being like a young person with nothing, and respecting the fact that it can be gone tomorrow. I mean, appreciate what you have, enjoy it, but don't ever lose sight of the fact that, you're very lucky to be where you are.
Do you see yourself stepping back from the spotlight anytime soon? What does retirement look like for you?
I think so many times people hustle, and then I'll retire when I'm 70. And then by the time you retire, you're not really in a place in life where you can enjoy it as much as you'd like to, whether it's physically you're not in the same place or, so I think it's a balance, right? I'd be bored if I retired now. I still love working. I still love what I do. But you also don't want to do it so late in life that you can't enjoy the fruits of the labor. I don't know, man. Maybe it's a semi-retirement. I don't.
What would be your dream semi-retirement?
I feel like I already do it. You know what I mean?
Really?
I live a weird life, right? Like I get to wake my kids up most mornings and take them to the school bus. My kids just think I sit around and watch TV all day while they're at school. I'm like, guys, I'm actually working. I'm actually doing things, I'm like, I'll go do Shoe Perfect match for a month. But then I'll come home and I'll have a month where I'm with the kids. And like there's a yin and yang to it. So in a weird way, I do feel like I'm kind of semi-retired, being able to be a present dad while still doing the projects and things that are important to me. That's the balance I'm looking for.
Nick, thank you so much for being here and chatting with me. I had so much fun. And immediately after this, I am going to go grab Full Circle. I'm putting my headphones on. I'm going to listen. And I hope everybody at home does the exact same.
Yeah, I hope you and a few million other people out there go and do the exact same thing. No, thanks for having me. It's been an awesome time.
That's it for today's episode. Drop your favorite thing that you learned from Nick in the comments. Send this to your Love is Blind obsessed bestie. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more from Richer Lives. See you next time.
Lock it down, roll some sound. Hold on, I can't. Gosh, you have good eyes. Hey guys, I'm Nick Lachey, and welcome to another episode of Richer Lives, AKA the show that teaches you how to use money to AKA the show that teaches you how to use money to live your best life.
Did I get fired?
I can't read the cards. So job security.
Job secured.